Welcome back to the second part of our Inside Iraq special from Amman about the education. And here now I would like to welcome Professor Mazen Abdul Hamid, former Dean of Engineering in Iraq, and Professor Abdel Sattar Ali from University Technology in Iraq, and Dr. Hassan Bidair, an Associate Professor in the University of Petra. Gentlemen, welcome to this special Inside Iraq. Dr. Hassan, if I may start with you, Iraq in the past sent thousands of people all over the world, not only to the west, but also to the east, irrespective of their ethnicity, religion, and what have you. If that tradition is to change, would that cost Iraq a lot?
Well, actually, certainly it will cost Iraq a lot. And this may be one of the key issues that should be considered in the process of reforming education, higher education in Iraq. We want higher education in Iraq to be academic, to be not discriminatory, should be built on good standards, ethics, no discrimination, no race, nothing like these things. This is actually the major responsibility of the new strategy which should be adopted by the Iraqis, by the probably Ministry of Higher Education, if the Ministry of Higher Education wanted to improve and to advance the education in Iraq. It should be built on such type of ethics.
So this should be an intellectual site for Iraqis to think freely and to practice research and to do an actual work in these universities. There was a figure I just read in one of the Iraqi newspapers that kind of shocked me. Out of the 7 applications for universities in Baghdad, 6 of them, they intend to teach religious curriculum. Is there a danger here that perhaps theocracy might be creeping into Iraq, Dr. Abdel Sattar?
Obviously, it's very difficult to evaluate any high education system from the religion point of view, because there is some opposite between the scientific research actually and the religion side of the society. Currently, as I heard from my colleagues, my friends, relatives, that there are a lot of universities, not only 6 or 4 or whatever. I think all the universities in Iraq, they are running such kind of religion programs, not only during the Muharram month, you know, but also during the actual or normal days of the year. And this is affect the regime, the education regime or system very badly, in fact. To reestablish the high education system once again, we have to do a lot of works, of course.
In fact, free intellectual thinking and religion, somehow they don't mix. That has been proven again and again. Now we are seeing a trend in Iraqi universities, even in school and high schools, that women are forced through hijab, whether that is related to education or not related to education, but it's symbolic of the things to come. How do you look at this? The inroads religion making into the corridors of learning.
I think Iraq is going through a transition period. This transition period is going to give different experiences, and people who are sincere in running education or higher education would benefit from it. And I think Iraq's long tradition in higher education and education will soon see to that trend disappearing gradually.
Do you accept that assessment? Iraq was secular teaching in Iraq since the establishment of 1921 until 2003 has this emphasis on science and learning and languages and medical can be preserved?
Well, this is actually a very nice question toward the development of higher education in Iraq. Higher education should be liberal type. Nothing against religion, with all the respect to the religion, but to find the publication, number of publication, 5 out of 7, all oriented toward religious matters, religious issue. I think this is a sort of mistake in the design of the higher education research. So we need to do some reform. We need to keep the stringent rules about academic research, and we need to orient the research for the need of the society.
Let me just add something to it. Religious institutions, they have as much right as other secular colleges and universities to teach. But when the Ministry of Higher Education gives a veto on any application and rather look with a favor on the religious institution, there is a double standard here, isn't there?
Well, if it took that side, then there will be a double standard, but I'm not sure about the policy of the Ministry of Higher Education that it takes that way. I think now the Ministry of Higher Education, according to the document I read lately, they say we want to reform the higher education and we want to put good effort for the reform of higher education. And we need international help, because it is the responsibility of Iraqis to do the reform of higher education in the first hand. But as you may know, that's one hand cannot collapse.
Dr. Abdel Sattar, today we discussed a lot about higher education. We did not touch upon elementary and junior and high school. They are, the building blocks for Iraqi education. There was a figure that in 2005 and 2006, almost 30% of Iraqi households, they did not send their children to school. So we are looking perhaps a generation of illiteracy, or at least there is a lag time.
People do not send their children to the school because there in Iraq, there is not any security or safety for kids, children, even for the adults. And that's why most of the people do not send their children or kids to the school or even to the university at all. I think the first problem that Iraqi should solve is to establish the peace and security. When we establish the peace and security, we can rebuild any system, not only the higher education system, any system in the society. We miss now, we don't have any security or safety, not in the street or in the colleges or whatever. And that is why a lot of people, they do not send. And this is, in the future, of course, effect on the percentage of literacy. It becomes higher and higher. Iraq, I remember in 1974 or 1975, zero. The literacy 100% was in that time.
From that height, Iraq kind of slipped through the slippery road, especially because of the sanctions that started in 1991. That's why when we talk about Iraqi educational system, especially at the hierarchy, it's a compounded problem. Perhaps you were in Iraq during those terrible years of sanctions. To what extent engineering school, a medical school, and other schools were affected by not having access, whether to the tools or even the funds, in order to continue?
The embargo years were very heavy on the higher education and education system in Iraq. In fact, we had to live on what was available, and equipment, instruments, were prevented from reaching Iraq. Our laboratories were going old. Our libraries were getting thin with references, and it was a very, it took a heavy toll on Iraqi education. However, we managed, and this is an indication of the will of the Iraqi people. Do not underestimate the will of the Iraqi people in general, and especially the people who work in education. They adapt themselves, and we should be proud of that. Now we have a chance to do it again. Let us not despair. Let us try and find out ways of achieving what we had lost before, and let us be proud of it.
A wonderful history, Mazen Abdul Hamid. I'm going to have to take a short break. We'll continue our discussion after that. Please stay with us.